Everyone, a round of applause for your sister. The only one who actually works hard around here. Dad announced, tapping his glass like he was hosting an awards ceremony. The table clapped. Even Mom smiled, proud. Hi, everyone. My name is Isla Monroe. I'm 28 years old, the invisible one. The sister who never did enough, despite quietly paying half this family's bills for the last 3 years. I sat between my parents and my older sister, Vanessa, who grinned like she'd just won Employee of the Year. She didn't know that every time she posted about her financial independence, it was my auto transfer keeping her rent paid on the first of every month. Dad leaned back, smug. You could learn from her, Isla. Maybe you'd finally stop floating through life. I smiled politely, taking a slow sip of water. Oh, I agree. Vanessa works hard. Which reminds me, I turned to her, my voice steady but sweet. You won't be needing that $3,500 anymore, right? Since you're so independent. Her fork clattered. W what? Mom froze. Isla, don't start. Dad frowned. What money? The rent, I said softly. The one I've been covering every month while she's been too busy, working hard. Vanessa choked on her drink, coughing into her napkin as the table went silent. Mom whispered her name like a warning. Dad's face reddened, his voice rising. You've been lying about paying your rent? Vanessa's eyes darted everywhere, but mine. I smiled, folding my napkin neatly on my lap. Looks like hard work comes in different forms, doesn't it? And for once, it wasn't me who looked small at that table. It was everyone else. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Vanessa tried to laugh, her voice trembling. Dad, it's not what it sounds like. Isla's just exaggerating. Exaggerating? I leaned back, calm. You used my card for 3 months straight. Then asked for transfers when the landlord started calling you directly. That's not exaggeration. Vanessa, that's a pattern. Mom reached across the table. We don't air private matters over dinner. I smiled faintly. You didn't seem to mind making me the lazy one in front of everyone, Mom. Dad rubbed his forehead. So, you've been lying to us? Letting your sister cover your bills while you pretended to be self-made. Vanessa's face flushed red. I just needed time to get ahead. You know my job doesn't pay well. Then maybe don't post financial freedom captions while your sister keeps the lights on, I said quietly. The table fell silent again. Even the clinking of silverware stopped. Mom stood abruptly. Enough. We're not doing this here. But Dad wasn't done. I thought you were responsible. You're no better than a freeloader, Vanessa. Her lip quivered, eyes glossy. This isn't fair. Isla's just jealous. I laughed once, small, cold, final. Jealous? I've been funding your independence. You're welcome. I stood, smoothing my dress. Dinner was wonderful as always. But next month's rent? That's on you. As I walked out, I heard the scrape of a chair. Dad's voice lower now. If what she said is true, Vanessa, you're paying that back. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. For once, their favorite daughter had no applause. Only silence, the kind that follows truth. By Monday morning, my phone was blowing up. First from Mom. Then from Vanessa. Then a joint call I didn't answer. Mom's text came through first. You embarrassed your sister in front of the whole family. That was cruel, Isla. Cruel. That word made me laugh out loud. Cruel was watching them toast her success, while I quietly cover her debts. Cruel was Dad calling me lazy while I paid off the mortgage balance he didn't even know had defaulted twice. I turned my phone off. Some truths don't need follow-ups. At work, I focused on the financial presentation my team had been preparing for weeks. My startup, Monroe Analytics, was being evaluated for a potential merger. The deal could triple our value overnight. My assistant, Daniel, handed me a fresh coffee. You okay? You look like you just won an argument you waited your whole life to have. I smiled. You could say that. That evening, when I finally turned my phone back on, there were 14 missed calls and 1 voicemail from Dad. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard. Isla, I didn't know you were helping us that much. Your mother didn't either. Maybe come home this weekend. We should talk.
I didn't respond.
Not yet. They'd only started to realize the weight of what I carried for years. The bills, the quiet rescues, the silent sacrifices. And part of me wanted them to sit with that realization a little longer. Because sometimes guilt teaches faster than forgiveness ever could. By Thursday, another text arrived from Dad. Dinner on Sunday. No surprises this time. Just family. No surprises. That was rich, coming from people who'd built their whole image on pretending everything was perfect. Still, curiosity tugged at me. So I decided to go, not for closure, but for clarity. When I arrived, the house felt different. Quieter. Almost uneasy. Vanessa was already there, dressed neatly, eyes down. No smug smile this time. Dad cleared his throat. Isla, your mother, and I owe you an apology. Mom folded her napkin slowly. We didn't realize how much you've done for us and for your sister. We just didn't notice. I finished softly. That's kind of the theme of my life here, isn't it? Dad exhaled. You're right. Vanessa finally looked up, voice small. I was wrong too. I shouldn't have lied. I just didn't want you to think I'd failed. I studied her face, searching for sincerity. You didn't fail because you struggled, Vanessa. You failed because you pretended you didn't. Mom's eyes watered. Can't we just move past this? I leaned back, calm. We can. But moving past something doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means you stop repeating it. Vanessa nodded slowly, shame softening her arrogance. Then Dad said something that made the room still. We've decided to repay every dollar you covered. Starting today. I smiled faintly. That's not necessary. I didn't do it for money. But you deserve acknowledgement, he said. For the first time in years, I believed him. The dinner ended quietly. No clapping. No mocking. Just a silence that, for once, didn't sting. It felt like respect. By the next week, things began to feel different, not perfect, but shifted. Vanessa texted me first, something she hadn't done in months. I got a promotion today. And yes, I earned it. No help. I thought you'd want to know. For a moment, I just stared at it. That was the first message she'd sent without pride or pretense, just honesty. I replied simply, I'm proud of you. Later that evening, I stopped by Mom and Dad's house to drop off some documents Dad had requested. He met me at the door with an envelope. Your reimbursement, he said, holding it out. I shook my head. Dad, really? He placed his hand over mine.
No.
You've been carrying this family for too long without credit. Let us carry something for once. For the first time in my life, he didn't sound condescending, just human. Inside, Mom had made my favorite dinner. There were no announcements this time, no performances. Just quiet conversation and genuine eye contact. Vanessa even poured me a glass of wine. You know, she said softly, when you stood up for yourself, I hated you for it. But now I get it. You were just tired of being the backup plan. I smiled.
Exactly.
I don't mind helping, but I won't disappear for anyone again. For the first time, the table didn't feel like a stage. It felt like a beginning, uncomfortable, fragile, but real. And somewhere between the clinking of glasses and the quiet laughter, I realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes, peace doesn't come from walking away. Sometimes it comes from making them face what they tried to ignore. A week later, I stopped by my parents' house again, just a casual visit, or so I told myself. Mom was in the garden, trimming roses. Dad was at the table reading the paper. For once it felt normal. While Mom brewed tea, I wandered into my old room. The air smelled faintly of lavender and dust. Everything looked frozen in time, except for the drawer of my old desk, left slightly open. Inside was a yellowed envelope with my name written in Dad's handwriting. Curious, I opened it. It wasn't money or bills. It was a letter. Isla, if you're reading this, it means I never said thank you properly. I know I was hard on you. I thought pressure would make you strong, but all it did was make you invisible. I saw the rent payments, the transfers, the debt you quietly cleared for us. I let your mother believe we did it on our own. We didn't. We had you. I'm sorry. My chest tightened. For a man who rarely admitted mistakes, those few sentences carried the weight of decades. I folded the letter gently, placing it back exactly as I'd found it. At dinner that evening, Dad asked if I'd found everything I needed. I met his eyes and said softly, "Yeah, I did." He smiled faintly, a silent understanding passing between us. Later, when I drove home under the amber streetlights, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace without distance. Because forgiveness didn't always need words. Sometimes, it was a quiet letter left in a dusty drawer, written too late, but still just in time. 2 Sundays later, the family gathered again, same table, same chairs, but this time, no tension humming beneath the laughter. Vanessa was calmer, almost humble. Dad poured wine for everyone, even me, with a quiet smile that felt like an apology he didn't have to say. Halfway through dinner, Vanessa leaned forward. "Isla," she began, "I've been thinking about that night, when you told everyone about the rent. You were right. I relied on your silence too much." Mom shifted uncomfortably, but Vanessa continued. "I used to think success was being praised. But I get it now. Real success is being self-sufficient, not stepping on the person who helped you stand." The room fell silent. For once, I wasn't fighting to be heard. They were choosing to listen. Dad cleared his throat. "You know, when you're young, you think power comes from control. But I learned something lately. Power comes from fairness. From admitting when you've been wrong." Mom looked at him sharply, but he didn't look away. Then, softly, she said, "I suppose I was unfair too. I thought being the parent meant always being right. Maybe it meant I should have listened more." That hit deeper than I expected. I smiled faintly. "It's okay. You're listening now. That's enough." For the first time in years, the family table wasn't about hierarchy, it was about truth. And as laughter returned, gentler this time, I realized something. Revenge might have woken them up, but honesty kept them awake. Months passed, and the balance I'd once begged for finally became the new normal. No grand gestures, no dramatics, just consistency. Vanessa managed her own rent now, and every time she sent me a text about paying bills or promotions, there was no competition in her tone, only gratitude. Mom started visiting my bakery every weekend. She never said, "I'm proud of you," but she didn't have to. She told every customer, "My daughter owns this place," with that subtle pride that used to be reserved only for Vanessa. And Dad? He still didn't talk much, but actions spoke louder. Every Sunday, he'd bring my favorite pastries from a rival shop just to tease me, a silent olive branch wrapped in humor. But the most unexpected moment came one evening, months later, when we sat around the same table again. Dad raised his glass. "To Isla," he said, voice steady. "The one who reminded this family what real worth looks like. And to the lesson she taught us, that silence isn't weakness, and kindness isn't to be mistaken for submission." Vanessa's eyes glistened. Mom reached over and held my hand. That was it. The quiet revenge. Not through destruction, but transformation. I didn't need them to suffer. I needed them to see. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't payback, it's peace. It's sitting at the same table that once mocked you, head high, heart steady, and knowing they finally understand the person they tried to underestimate. And as I raised my glass back to them, I said softly, "To new beginnings and better endings." That night, I went home lighter. Justice had already been served, silently, beautifully, completely.
Đó là tìm được tất cả màu vàng 5 9 O rồi.